Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. In this episode, we're going to add some depth and sharpening to your images. I'm here to show you some simple techniques that are easy to master in both Lightroom and Photoshop. Now, if you're someone who doesn't use Photoshop and you only use Lightroom, don't worry, we're going to do the same adjustments in Lightroom. It's a bit different, you have a little less control, but the same sort of theory is applied here. So stick with me to the end, you won't be disappointed. If you are new to this channel, my name is Shannon and I'm a full-time photographer in beautiful British Columbia. Whether you're here to learn, be inspired, or simply enjoy some stunning visuals, you've come to the right place. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. Alright, I've got two images here. I've got a gold mantled ground squirrel and an American dipper. I believe that's what those both are. Now, there is a lot of detail here in these shots, but of course, room for improvement. Now, these images were taken on a Nikon D850. This is a DSLR, and a lot of people just pass these up because mirrorless is the newest and greatest thing. Now, it doesn't have the 20 or 30 frames per second, but the image quality is incredible. And then I paired it with this lens right here. This is a 500 f4 Pro lens. It's old, it's heavy. You can adapt this to a mirrorless camera body with an adapter. This can still get you some incredible images where you don't have to buy the best gear to get these incredibly sharp shots. So we're going to start with the golden mantled ground squirrel here. And the first thing I want to do is actually crop it in. This is kind of nice. Vibrant saturation. Bring up the shadows. I'm going to brighten the whole thing a little bit. That looks good. Bring down the highlights. There, that looks really nice. Now I'm going to do some specific, adjustments to my subject. So I'm going to go over to my masking here, click that, and I can add a mask. I'm going to choose the subject. And you'll notice that it didn't give me my tail. So if I wanted to add the tail, I could just go to this plus icon to just add to it. I'm going to click on object. Sometimes just clicking on subject, the program doesn't do the best job. So selecting the object works really well. So by hitting that plus icon, I've now combined the two masks here. And here I can bring up some of the shadows a little bit, add some more contrast. And it does add detail. Detail is not just in cranking up a sharpening slider. We see detail through contrast as well. Now, in my last video, a lot of people are like, why don't you just use the texture slider? And it's true, texture will add more detail to feathers and fur, which I'm going to do here. I'm going to actually zoom in so we can actually see the details here. And I'm going to bring up the texture here, as well as a little bit of the clarity. You don't want to go too much, because then it looks really bad. So light hand on this, and you can see it really adds a lot more detail to the fur here. Okay, now before I go any further, there's something that we need to do. We need to take care of the noise. So we got some noise here, and there's some softening that's happening, even though there's some detail around the eyes. It's just not tack sharp if we were really going to pixel peep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of my settings. I'm going to check all, hit copy, and then I'm going to right click and go export in, and I'm going to use DxO Pure Raw 6. Now, a huge thank you to DxO for sponsoring this week's video. Their program is amazing. I do use it all the time. And in the last video, people asked me what did I do with the noise and the sharpening. And this is the program that I use. And if we zoom way in to this golden mantle, and I'll let things render here, we can see the difference that this program makes. So if you haven't used this program before, it's fairly simple. Up at the very top, we have our different ways to view what we see here. On the bottom just shows us what images we have selected, because you can actually do this in batches. Up at the right hand side, we have different presets that we can have. So the little drop down for that. There is D prime 3 and D prime XD3. And there's a slight difference between the two. D prime 3 is going to be a lot faster to process and pump the images out really quick. D prime XD3 does a little bit more punch to your detail. If we zoom way in, see the before and after, huge difference. But here's D prime 3 and here is XD3. And you can see that there's a slight difference in pixels. It's ever so slight. A little softer, a little bit more detail. And if you were going to print this, enlarge it, that sort of thing, go with the XD3. It's a little bit more finesse with your images. And then down here we have our luminance for our noise. So if we zoom way in on any of the noise here, we can see the before and after. It's sharpened those little hairs and it looks really good. If we pull this all the way down, you can see the noise. Then we have our forced detail here. And then down here, the intensity, we can just slide up to, you can put it way down. I like bringing it up to there. That looks really good. Beautiful. So we hit process now. Now DxO is doing a discount for a limited time, 20% off. I'll have a link down in the description so you can get your hands on this. I do love using this product. I do want to thank DxO for sponsoring this channel so that I can keep doing what I'm doing. Now it is editing the raw file. So all of those edits that we made before, they're not lost because I copied them and we can just hit paste and it'll just make all of those adjustments onto our new file that is from DxO. Okay, now the next step I want to do in Photoshop. It's a technique that we can do in Lightroom. So if you're someone who doesn't use Photoshop at all, don't worry, we're going to do it there. So I'm going to right click on this image, go edit in Photoshop. Now the reason why I like using Photoshop over Lightroom for some of these technical little details that I like to do is that I have more control. I find you can really adjust the lighting, the cooling, the shadows, the highlights way better in Photoshop. So I'm going to hit Command J to duplicate that layer. So I'm working off of a copy. And so the technique here is working with contrasting colors. Again, like I said earlier, sharpness is not just in sharpening the details, but it's also in contrast, not just in shadows and highlights, but also in color to allow our subject to pop. We have a cool background here, and the subject is a warm color, right? So we can play with those. So I'm gonna go down to the bottom. We have our adjustments layer icon here. So when we click on it, we got all of our adjustments. And I'm gonna go all the way down to the bottom and pick solid color. Now the first thing I'm going to do is pick blue, and this is going to play to our shadows. Shadows are colder, darker, so that's where I pick blue. And then we're going to do the same thing for our highlights, which are going to be warm. And so that's going to be our contrast. So right now we have a dark blue, and while you have the color selected, go up to where it says normal. So that means it's just a normal blue color. And we're going to scroll all the way down to soft light. And you can see everything is really quite dark and blue. So right now the mask is white. So white is to reveal. So it's revealing our adjustment layer here. Black, if we hit Command I to invert. So now if we have a white paintbrush, we can paint in this adjustment layer. And I can just paint in areas that are in the shadows, or I want to push them further into the shadows, but we're also applying that blue color to it as well. I can do it to the background. Now, if it's not blue enough, we can double click on this color and we can change it. You can see that it's changing the colors here. You can get really blue. So we'll just pick that. Okay, now we're going to do the highlights. So if we go down to adjustment layer, solid color, pick something like that. Now we can always adjust it later, but right now we'll just pick a kind of a grayish color that has a little bit of yellow in it, go from normal. And this time we're going to pick color dodge. And you can see it can blow out some of the highlights, so you got to be careful with this as we're painting it in. So white is to reveal, Command I, black is to conceal, and we're going to go right to where the eye is and take a look at this. If I start brushing in, I'm using a white paintbrush, remember, because we're revealing this adjustment layer. Look at the eye here. So we kind of want to enhance the areas that maybe are a little duller. And we're also adding a little bit of color in there, kind of like warm sunlight, because this is a raw image and we're adding a little bit of that warmth back into the image. And then even the background with the yellows, we can bring some sunlight into this image. And then watch the tail here. I want a little bit more of that sun pop. There we go. That looks good. And then we can even do it a little bit on the foreground. Beautiful. Okay, we can do the same technique in Lightroom. Now here's the raw image of this American Dipper. Now it's quite dark because I wanted to preserve any of the highlights from the splashed water. It's a little bit too dark, but what we're going to do is first crop in. Okay, that looks pretty good, and we're going to brighten it right up. Bring up the shadows. These are global adjustments, which is fine. We'll be a little bit more specific here in a second. Now it's a little too blue for me, so we're going to warm that up. That looks great. Okay, let's add some vibrance, some saturation. That looks good. Now we want to be specific by choosing the areas that we want to add some sharpening to. Now if we zoom way in, these feathers are pretty good, but you'll be blown away by how DxO really sharpens it up. And then there's a little bit of noise here we can see in the background. Okay, next, before we go any further, I'm going to copy my settings and then we're going to process it in DxO. Now, if you wanted to, you could just start off with this image in DxO so you don't have to copy and paste. But I like exploring the photo, making some adjustments to see whether or not it's worth doing extra work for. And so that's why I do it this way. Now, if we zoom way in on these feathers, now we're on D prime 3. I want to do the XD3 and take a look at the difference here. Look at that. Beautiful. We removed the noise. Here's the eye. Plenty of detail now in those feathers. All right, now I pasted the settings here onto this new DxO file. Now, just like I did in Photoshop, we're going to apply some color dodging and burning here. But before I do, I want to just see if I can bring out a little bit more details in the feathers. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our masking here, hit the plus icon, and choose our subject. We're going to see how good of a job it did with this bird. Oh, not too bad. I don't like that, so I'm going to hit Command Z to undo. And instead, I'm going to select Object. Because sometimes it doesn't do a great job, especially if there's a lot of other things in the way. So we're going to paint over Subject. I also want to get the water droplets in here. Perfect. It only got the bird here, and that's fine if we didn't want the water, but I'm going to hit the plus icon, and I'm going to select Object again, and we're going to just fine tune because I want these water droplets. Okay, perfect. Now there is some ripples that I also might want to add some texture to, so we're going to hit the plus icon, go down to the brush, and I'm just going to brush the areas here. So now that that's selected, I'm going to go down to texture, and you can see as I bring up the texture, it changes the details here ever so slightly. So there's texture here, and then there's a little bit of clarity, but I don't want to go too extreme. Okay, that is awesome. Good, now we're gonna start applying our warm highlights and our cool shadows here. How we're gonna do that is go to the plus icon and pick brush. And it's as simple as bringing up maybe our highlights a bit, shadows, let's even do exposure. And then we want to go down to temperature. We're going to pick a warm temperature here. And then we're just going to apply some of that sunset glow. Okay, that looks really good. Now we can keep applying that a little later, but right now I want to move on to the next one, brush. And we're going to work with shadows, bringing the contrast down a tiny bit, up a tiny bit, and we're going to have the temperature down in the cool side. Now let's see what this does. Looks good. And we can just work on fine-tuning the areas that we want to really contrast. Okay, back to our other one for highlights. I might even duplicate that. Go down to brush, bring up exposure, shadows, highlights, warm it up quite a bit. And then just brush in this splash right here. Beautiful. So is this something you would do and apply to your images? Let me know down in the comments, and subscribe if you want to see me out in the field. I don't just do office stuff like this. I go out and photograph wildlife in the field and take you guys along with me. Be sure to check out the link if you want 20% off that DxO program, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Thanks. Ciao.